All right, guys, we are now in the latter half of the episode. Really looking forward to this interview. We've got Matthew Quigley, one of the board of directors with Rising Spear. Obviously, Florida State getting heavily now into the NIL space. We've got Matthew on with us this afternoon to kind of educate some of the listeners and also have a little discussion on what the NIL means, how the Rising Spear is going to continue to grow, and where your money is going if you do intend on donating and helping out Rising Spear. Matthew, good afternoon. Really excited to have you on here with us.
Guys, I can't thank y'all enough. Logan, Dustin, NIL Game Day. Super excited to explain and kind of educate your subscribers.
Yeah, man, y'all have been going everywhere. It seems like I was just talking to you earlier, but it seems like Radio Row getting ready for the Super Bowl. But I think that's exactly what you want to do right now because, it was kind of quiet the last couple of months. You probably saw the fans on Twitter wondering, all right, when are we going to be informed on, the few things that y'all are working on? And it seems to be now it's time to showcase what y'all have been working on the last couple of months. So how has it been maybe going on the other shows and continuing for the rest of the week? I know you're getting on with James Coleman later on this week. How's it been kind of going on these shows and representing Rising Spear?
Yeah, we really thank Seminole Nation for their patience. We really wanted to make a very big splash this week. This has been planned for a while, as you guys can kind of tell, with the website being developed, which was by the Zimmerman Agency. Curtis Zimmerman and his team over there donated a ton of time. They did a phenomenal job. The website, the ease of use, everything is great about it. But as far as, we wanted to make a big splash for this week and kind of announce our presence to the Florida State fan base and the nation and say, hey, we're here to play. The tally is open for business.
Yeah, and that's actually funny because Logan worked at the Zimmerman Agency.
Yep, I know. I had affiliation there. I was a social media guy over there, so not really hands-on maybe with the design, but when I was there, there was a few projects that Zimmerman did with Florida State, so they would ask me to come in and talk a little bit. But they're definitely a great agency, very, very, very well known in Tallahassee space, and it's good that I like that y'all are working with the local agency here in Tallahassee. I think that's huge. But I want to start off just really simply, and I think this is how this episode's going to go, is just educating us on what NIL means in general to these fans, because I think there's a lot of question marks. Twitter, Discord, Facebook, definitely Facebook. They're always the latter ones on getting the know of what's going on in life. But maybe the description of NIL and what this means for just athletes in general.
Sure. Simply, NIL is an athlete is finally able to be paid for their name and likeness. So there is a market value to the starting quarterback at Florida State. And it's a pretty high market value. When you think about Jameis Winston and what he was able to bring to the program as far as a national title and 28 straight in one loss, when you think about that value that he brought to FSU, and then he wasn't able to monetize that. He had to wait until he was drafted. Well, as of July 1 of last year, that completely changed throughout the country, and every law is a little different. Florida is kind of hamstrung at the moment, but still at the end of the day, these players are finally able to be paid fair market value for their brand and what they are worth in the market.
And Matthew, I was just wondering, before we dive deeper into NIL a little bit, can you tell us a little bit about yourself as a member of the board of directors and just kind of how you got involved with Rising Spear?
Sure, Dustin. So I graduated from Florida State in 2005. I was one of the first board members for Seminole Student Boosters back in the day, and then I was on the alumni board for Seminole Boosters. And, I live down here in South Florida in West Palm Beach, so it's a pretty big hike. I still try to make it to 1 or 2 games a year, but I am all in on Florida State. It is right, faith, family, and Florida State football for me. And once I heard about Rising Spear, I immediately contacted Bob Davis, and we struck up a conversation. And then Lance Barton and I have known each other for a while, and Lance is on the board as well. And really in January is kind of where I came on. But in February, middle February is where I was really involved almost on a day-to-day basis of making sure that, right, our crowdfunding campaign was ready to launch, how the website was looking, you know, just trying to do everything we can for Null Nation, guys.
And so really from top to bottom, you know, Rising Spear from Bob Davis all the way down, you know, everyone there is either graduated from Florida State, you know, as an alumni, or is somehow affiliated, you know, in K-Camp's case, worked with the football program for a long time. So can you just talk about why it's important to have a staff that has been so involved at Florida State?
Yeah, really our board of directors and in K-Camp, you know, we are diehard Seminoles. We want to have the best NIL collective in the country for our student athletes, so that all of our athletic programs can be the best they can be and are competing for national titles. Obviously, football is kind of what's tied to NIL, but you have to remember that, you know, there are 500 student athletes at Florida State, and all of these guys and girls now have an opportunity to make some money and off their brand. And, you know, that's what Rising Spear is here for.
I want to get to a few of the biggest questions, and it's all on the Discord all the time, and, you know, waiting on the site to update, because, you know, they all had the first update, and that was whenever Florida State fans were able to go in and throw money into something, but maybe didn't know exactly what they were going to be getting out of it. Now there's a full update with the new site's launch, and, you know, what are maybe these fans getting when they're donating? Because now the big discussion is, well, where do I donate now? Do I stay as a booster, or do I cut some of that and go 50-50 with NIL with Rising Spear and then go boosters, or do I go fully into NIL? I think that's a big discussion just for personal budgeting at home families will be doing. But maybe what are these fans expecting to get? What maybe are some future projects in the works, but just in general, the donation part of where this money's going?
Sure. So we want to make sure that our booster organization stays very well funded and is growing on a day-to-day basis. Because, guys, that pays for our athletic scholarships. But at the same time, Rising Spear in the NIL world, we want to compete for national titles. And if you can give to both, if you can keep your booster donation what it is and still give to Rising Spear, that's the best case scenario. I understand it's asking for a lot, but if you really want to make a difference and you want to win football games, you got to donate to Rising Spear. So the two different funds right now that we have is the Garnet Spirit Fund, and that's our charitable organization. It's a 501c3, and you will receive a tax deduction for the donation you give. That fund, we team up with local charities. Logan, I don't know if you were out at the Boys and Girls Club of the Big Bend a month and a half ago, but that's the sort of things that we're going to be doing as well with Special Olympics and Best Buddies. And, you know, that Garnet Spirit Fund, that's a phenomenal cause. It really helps the players. It gets them out into the community, helping out, right? Just everybody that's involved here. The donor feels good, the player feels good, and the charity is loving it because they have student athletes there playing with their kids or whatever the case may be. Then on the other side is the Gold Standard membership, and that is your typical NIL fund. And right now we're really for this spring game week, we're really only focusing on, you know, a $250 a month and up membership. And I understand that's a lot of money, guys, but that's what we've decided to focus on for the spring game. And for that, we are offering member benefits that are unlike anywhere else in the country. On Friday night, we're going to have an exclusive event above Madison 51 at their rooftop right there in College Town. We're going to have our alumni advisory, some members of our alumni advisory board will be in town. Some other serious heavy hitter guests will be there as well. And then on Saturday, for the $500 a month and up, you will receive access to our box suite. And, you know, that's a spring game. Our board of directors, they have literally donated the box to Rising Spear for this specific use. And this is not going to be a one-time thing. You know, you're going to want to get in early so we remember during the season that you guys that the donors donated at this point, because we'll remember that, and to get you some more tickets and box suite access.
So looking at the head of next season, I can see where this spring game is going to kind of be a test for y'all, and maybe experiment on what you want to do, what worked this upcoming weekend, and head that into the upcoming fall.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to have a bunch of member benefit events kind of throughout the state and the Southeast. We have a large donor base in Atlanta. Our alumni base in Atlanta. We have a large alumni base in Dallas-Fort Worth, up in Charlotte. So we're going to be planning a lot more kind of member benefit events throughout the off season. And then, like you said as well, around away games and of course home games. And the home games are where you guys are really going to see kind of the member benefit access that we have.
Yeah, and I know you were talking about some of those charitable events, and we've seen some Florida State football players go out there and participate in those. Can you tell us some of the athletes that are currently at Florida State that are involved with Rising Spear? This week we've seen, I think, Jordan Travis, AJ Duffy, Jamie Robinson, a couple guys put out graphics that they're player ambassadors with Rising Spear, but maybe just not even limited to the football team. Who are some of the athletes that are currently involved?
Yeah, so the ambassador post that you guys saw, so those players are signed to Rising Spear contracts, and then we also have, I believe, the entire soccer team has signed a Rising Spear contract, and we have another. I think we're at like another 14 football players. We're also in some talks with softball players, baseball, track and field stuff. Women's basketball. We are in talks with basically everybody. We want as many student athletes to come on our website at risingspear.com, fill out the information, and we can go ahead and get you guys signed up under our Garnet and Gold programs.
So how does that work exactly? Sorry, Logan. Do the student athletes, do they have to reach out to you? Are you allowed to reach out to them? How does that all kind of go?
Yeah, it goes both ways. Obviously, with the new website launch, the easiest way would be if they were to kind of fill out the form. But there are a lot of ways to get to contact people nowadays.
I wanted to ask, going back to, you were saying that the Rising Spear has a lot of different benefits, some that other colleges or other places don't offer. What makes maybe Rising Spear different than going to Florida State's biggest rival, and that's down there in Gainesville with the Gator Collective, who started and seems like they're finding some success there with their NIL program. What maybe makes Rising Spear different than the Gator Collective down there in Gainesville?
So the main difference, right, and why they've kind of had a little bit more success is they were able to start back in July or August of last year. And so they've finally have built up that groundswell that we are kind of just launching this week. The other difference that I've seen, and I could be totally wrong because I'm not, it turns me off to see that blue and orange a lot, right? So I haven't spent a whole bunch of time studying them, but from what I've noticed, they don't have the same involvement from their, I don't know if they have a board of directors. In other words, they aren't really there, in my opinion, and I could be totally wrong here, to support the student athletes from the moment they step foot on campus for their next 30, 40, 50 years in life. And that's where really Rising Spear is kind of setting itself apart and above everyone else. That our board of directors, our alumni ambassadors are going to be helping these student athletes to launch them into the future. Because as we know, 1% of the student athletes are going to turn pro in their sport. Mm-hmm. And it's one of my passions is to set these guys up for the next 40 or 50 years. Like it's great that they can make, $2,000 on an Instagram post, but it would be way better if by the time they left school, they had 15% of multiple companies, right? So instead of taking that quick check or that quick cash, how about we think long-term here as opposed to the short-term? So when you're 50, you're retired and set for life.
Mm-hmm. And I want to go back to what you and Dustin were talking about, Matthew, and that's what does, going to be an ambassador, what does that mean for a player, and what is the plan for them? And, we see the posts and, maybe that's it. What does it mean for them? I guess events and such. Just maybe educate us on maybe the ideas that y'all have in mind for these players to do. If you're a football player, soccer, baseball, track, swim, anything, what does those players intend on doing as being a Rising Spear ambassador?
Yeah. So that, once again, that means you've signed a contract with Rising Spear, and you are going out into the community to the charities I discussed. You're helping out there. You're showing up to some Rising Spear events. This is not like in every, if we have an event, you have to show up. This is not how we operate here, right? Once again, we're here to support the student athletes. We want to make sure that their schedules fit. When you're a football player, I mean, we've all seen the schedule, right? You are booked for 12 hours, 14 hours a day.
Yeah.
So if the schedule allows it and they would like to come to an event and sign autographs or take some photos, that's great. And that's kind of up to them. And then what was the second part of your question, Dustin and Logan?
I think it was about how Florida State, or not Florida State, I think you answered. I think it was just basically about how Florida State, these players how they're going to be an ambassador for the Rising Spear and what that really involves. But I think you answered it. I think so. I was going to ask two real quick, and I talked with Bob about this, and what does it mean, the affiliation wise between Florida State and you? Because, he told me straight up, there's not a lot of stuff you can do with Florida State. You can't have that affiliation. I think just to educate maybe some of the listeners on here, what that means and why does it mean? Why can't they be affiliated? Why can't you go talk to Mike Norvell and say, hey, can you help me? Blah, blah, blah. Can you do this? Why is that? And yeah.
So once again, due to our state law. So Florida was great. They were the first state to pass an NIL law and allow our players to make profit off of their name and likeness. But in doing so, they hamstrung kind of the university and the third party entity, which would be Rising Spear. And due to that, we can have zero involvement with Florida State. So if you notice on our website, there it says Rising Spear. The spear is completely different. We don't have any Chief Osceola because that is not allowed. We have to be a completely third party entity to Florida, like not even to Florida State, on our own. We can't have any direct contact with anybody within athletics or FSU administration. Our two co-founders actually had to step down from their board positions with Seminole Boosters because according to the state law, that would be illegal. So due to all of that, right, we at Rising Spear are a completely third-party entity.
I guess a question I do have is when an athlete does sign an NIL deal with Rising Spear, do you have to inform Florida State that they're signing a contract with you, or is that just completely between you and the athlete?
No, so the athlete actually has to inform Logan. If you scroll down to the bottom, I don't remember the exact organization. So in those 1, 2, 3, 4, it says in there. I think. Sorry, guys.
No,
I should know this. So within 72, it's like within 72 hours, they have to notify kind of the compliance board with Florida State and let them know that a deal has been signed.
Okay.
All right. So my answer was right there on the website.
Yep. Go educate yourself, Dustin. Go educate yourself. It'd take a minute to read there, maybe just for a second. Might not be too bad for you. I'm wondering too, with events and such going on and having players involved, maybe what's the idea for the future of Rising Spear as a whole? Because, like you just said, y'all just launched, the true product site of everything and giving fans an opportunity to be educated and now donate and now give the reason why they're donating, give information behind that. But maybe what's the overall goal for Rising Spear, let's say in 2 to 3 years? And, you know, I still think there's a lot to be learned, just not only with NIL and certain colleges, but also, you know, statewide and competing with other schools, because there's some really good schools here in Florida. But maybe what's the overall goal of the Rising Spear, let's say in 2 to 3 years?
Yeah. So our goal at Rising Spear is to be the best collective in the country, not in the state, not in you know, the Southeast, not even above SEC teams, right? Our goal at Florida State is to be the best NIL fund collective in the country. Now, that may not mean, right, we don't have oil fields in our backyards here in Florida. So that may not mean that we have exactly the most money, but I truly believe with the amount of alumni that there are, fans and boosters of Florida State and in Knoll Nation, that we can definitely compete money-wise. And then, like I said earlier, the way that we're going to separate ourselves is through our board of directors and our alumni advisors and ambassadors. And all of this working together is going to show the recruits that are coming up. They're going to show the current student athletes, and we're going to give them a proof of concept of how things are going to work at Rising Spear and how we are going to propel into the future.
And when you're speaking about ambassadors, so y'all have some really big names on here, definitely and all around sports at Florida State. Too, here the Spear alums, I do have to name Charlie Ward and Derek Brooks being on here. But what is maybe their involvement in all this? How did you contact them? Did they ask to get involved? How does that work, and what are they plan on doing with Rising Spear? Could they be one of the secret high profile guests this upcoming weekend at y'all's event?
Yes, Logan, you're reading between the lines there.
Yeah, taking some guesses.
Yeah. So yeah,
don't
hard
spoil
guesses.
it.
Yeah, really hard.
Come on.
Once Bob and Alan decided that they were going to form Rising Spear, Charlie and Derek kind of found out about it, and then they went and talked to Megan and Nikki and Jalen, and then as well as Kez, and they told them what they were doing. And they explained to them that we're going to have these two separate funds. We're going to have one charitable contribution side. We're going to have one regular NIL collective side. And we really want y'all to help us and help the student athletes, kind of guide them through this process. You know, Charlie Ward and Bob Davis had a conversation about it. And, you know, Charlie, he said, it wouldn't have changed a single thing for me. He said, I would have come to Florida State. If I would have gotten money, I would have put it in some sort of fund to help underprivileged youth, right? I mean, that's just the type of person Charlie Ward is. And that's why when I said earlier, like, we're going to do things, you know, the Knoll way, the right way. And that's due to, you know, how Florida State's program came up from the late 70s and made the run in the 90s. That's Bobby Bowden, right? And we got to honor that legacy.
So what do they do? Do they offer kind of advice to the student athletes on ways to use the money that they're earning, or?
Yeah, and I mean, whether it be a life call, if it has to be a life call or a financial call, you know, they're there for them however they need it. And we're also going to have, you know, financial advisors. You know, Bob Davis is a retired CPA and financial planner, right? We have a bunch of people that are ready and willing and able to help these student athletes through it. And in our alumni advisory board, you know, they've lived that college student athlete life, right? I mean, I definitely didn't. Bob and Alan didn't, you know? So they are presented with different challenges than I was as a college student. And they are able to help the student athletes if they want it or if it's needed.
Wanted to bring up earlier, we talked about it in the production meeting before we started recording, but y'all most recently brought on Clayton Campbell, used to be here with us, a great guy, used to be with us, graphic designer at Knoll Game Day, went on and did some great things for Florida State and had an awesome opportunity, had, completed one of his biggest dreams, and that was working at Florida State, and he did that, and then now he's off doing freelance. But now, the latest update, him joining Rising Spear, and Matthew, you personally bringing him on. What does that mean? Because it seems like you're finding now you're having the chance to kind of build a team here to represent Rising Spear. Because like I said, a couple of months ago when I was having those meetings, it just felt like two people, but it seems like a team is being built. But most certainly bringing on Clayton Campbell, who's a fan favorite, who definitely gives you a sneak peek, kind of gives you the bat signals when recruits are committing. He used to do that back in his day. Definitely might not be able to do that now, but still really had a big fan presence on Twitter. And a lot of people know him as K-Camp. So how is it bringing him on? And then also, do you plan on doing this more and bringing on maybe some talent? It seems like these are talented people, bringing on talent to grow the Rising Spear brand as a whole.
Yeah, Logan, you're 100% right. Back when you had that conversation with Bob and Alan in December, they kind of realized that they needed to form Rising Spear like they formed their multi-million-dollar companies, and so in doing that, and Lance Barton as well, and bringing me on, we are developing a team, and I knew right away, right, that K-Camp, he's the GOAT. His talent is insane, and I mean, we've already seen the stuff that he's been posting for us from Rising Spear's account. The even better thing about Clayton is I talked to somebody that he previously worked for, and I said, what can you tell me about Clayton? And they said that his professionalism and his work ethic is second to his talent. Right? So in other words, he is professional and he works his ass off, y'all. It is. I got a text from him last night at like 3:30 in the morning. And I text him like, dude, when do you sleep? And he says, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Let's go. I mean, that is K-Camp, right? I mean, it is awesome. And he's so freaking talented at all of, the graphics that he does in managing our social. It's been a phenomenal, bringing him in. It's been phenomenal. And teaming up with Rising Spear it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah, I was the same way with Clayton. He'd be texting us in our graphic design group chat late at night. And those kind of graphic designers, man, they grind. They definitely grind. And definitely, I think it was a great addition to bring him on to help represent Rising Spear. D-Lou, do you have one more? I might have one more, but it's kind of lost out of my mind. Do you have one, D-Lou?
Yeah, I don't remember if you asked this earlier, but I think one thing that fans would want to know is when they donate to Rising Spear, where exactly does the money go? When they make a donation, are they able to allocate it to one sport? You did say that?
I kind of did, but the one sport kind of thing is a good question.
Yeah.
Can you specifically do it too?
Can you break it up 50-50 between football and basketball?
Yeah. So right when you go to donate and you click on either the Garnet or Gold, the first thing that pops up for the payment screen is what sport would you like this to go to? And you can put in football/basketball. But if you want to donate to like 5 different sports, I would recommend, doing 5 separate recurring donations for each of those sports. We can divide it up for 2, but if you're going more than that, let's just do 3 separate recurring donations, and then you can name those sports you want it to go to.
And if I was just going to ask just a general question for any fans that want to learn more, I know you've got the Rising Spear site, but is there any other places online or somewhere or an account to follow to maybe be updated on NIL and get informed on educationally on that kind of information?
Yeah, Logan. So you're going to want to follow, right? So risingspear.com, obviously. And then we're at Rising Spear NIL on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Stay tuned, guys. We got a lot more coming. This is not just a 4 or 5 day media blitz. We're gonna be around a long time. So get ready to hear my voice a lot more. We heard Rashida Gale, K-Camp, Bob Davis, Alan Flamenhaft, Lance Barton. We're gonna be all over this for years to come because we got to get back to winning national titles. And that's what Noel Nation needs to realize is you got to get on risingspear.com, donate, and let's go win some games.
Perfect. D-Lou, do you have any more?
I think that's it for me.
Yeah, no, Matthew, I definitely appreciate you hopping on here with us. I know the listeners right now definitely needed this more than anything to just get educated on. And like I said, hopefully in the near future, have you back on to kind of maybe have more of a discussion field on certain events that y'all are doing, and just have a discussion overall on how things are going in the start of this, because this is all new to every college football fan. And I think there's a lot of question marks, but today, at least a lot of answers have been given and cleared some minds. So definitely appreciate you, Matthew, coming on here and representing Rising Spear and giving a rundown on y'all's new launch of the site, and a lot of things clicking right now for y'all's team and continuing to build and build. So I definitely appreciate you hopping on here.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thank you, Noel Game Day. If you got any questions, info@risingspear.com or any of the DMs, hit us up. We're super transparent. We love interacting. Let us know.